Welcome to Linux for Beginners. Today's guide will be going over how to get started with the terminal and how I suggest you set it up. If you're watching this for some reason but are not interested in the terminal, I highly suggest you watch the other videos in this series which are about using Linux without the terminal at all. Without further ado, let's begin. Depending on your distro, they may have installed a pretty nice looking terminal. There's many out there and your distro probably came with one like GNOME Shell, Console, Kitty, or Alacrity. You can't really go wrong here, but I am pretty biased towards Kitty and Ghosty personally. Regardless of what you choose, you can probably find its config file in your home folder's .config folder. I just edited some colors and changed the background transparency a bit. You can mess around with all kinds of settings and themes here. In my opinion, it's really important to make sure your terminal looks good. When I first switched to Linux and started using the terminal, having a bit of customization beyond the black and white mess I was used to really motivated me to keep learning. In the terminal, you typically interact with what's called a command line shell. There are three big shells: bash, zish, and fish. Bash is pretty much the standard command line, what you'd expect from a terminal, just text. It's nothing fancy, but since it's universal and typically the default on most Linux distributions, it's very important to remember that it exists. Zish, or Z shell, is a shell used on macOS and Linux. It's very popular with a lot of tinkering that can be done with its plugin ecosystem. However, today I will be recommending Fish. Aside from it having a funny name, it's the most user-friendly shell out of the box with no tinkering, and the one I use personally. It doesn't really matter too much which you pick, so if you prefer the other two, those will work just fine. We're going over just the basics today, not learning how to script, so these commands should all work. The first very important thing to know about the terminal is sudo. It stands for super user do, and it's like the ultimate put your foot down and tell the operating system what you want maneuver. If anything ever says permission denied, you type sudo before that command and it will happen. First, we're going to start with moving around. When you open up the terminal, you'll see the tilde off to the side. That tells you that you are in your home directory. If you type pwd, then you'll list where you are because it stands for print working directory. So as you can see, the tilde is just shorthand for /home/Yuberz, which is my home directory. Next, type ls, which is shorthand for list. It just lists all the files where you are. So now we can see all the standard stuff in our home directory, like our desktop, downloads, and pictures folder. Pretty simple stuff. Next, to go into a folder, use the cd or change directory command. So if I want to check out my desktop folder, I would type cd desktop. But there's a faster way to do it. If you start typing the beginning of a word and press tab, then you'll autocomplete. If there's multiple folders that match the autocomplete, you can keep pressing tab until you get the one you want. So if I did cd D, then press tab, that matches desktop, documents, and downloads. I could cycle through all of that, or I could just type cd desk, and the only valid autocomplete is desktop, so I could get there super quickly. If you want to go up one directory, type cd dot dot. The reason why it's dot dot and not just one dot is because dot is just the directory you're currently in. I like to think of dot as here and dot dot as backward. With cd, you can also just write a whole directory. So if I want to go to a specific folder in a specific place, you can type in the whole file structure one at a time. So let's say I'm in my downloads folder and want to go to my desktop. I can just do cd tilde/desktop, since the tilde is shorthand for my home, and then I'm just going to my desktop. Typing that anywhere will bring you to the desktop folder. Okay, let's immediately start with how to use this effectively. When you install a program, typically it'll register its own command into the terminal, which is just the program's name. Typing Steam, for example, will literally just launch Steam with the terminal. The nice thing about doing this is that you can diagnose if there are any issues going on since you can read what's happening on the back end. But the real power is being able to add arguments to it. Let's take Dolphin, our file manager, for example. If you just type Dolphin, it'll open the home folder, which is expected. But if you do Dolphin, then enter a directory path afterwards, it'll open directly to that folder. Finally, we can combine our knowledge of what just one dot means in the terminal to do Dolphin dot. That command will open Dolphin to wherever we are in the terminal. And this is how I prefer to navigate my file manager if I have to go anywhere deep. I navigate with the terminal, which is way faster because I know the name instead of having to poke around a list looking for the right folder. Then I can just type Dolphin dot, and it'll open Dolphin for easy and intuitive file operations, like moving and deleting files. I'll show on screen some of the other ways to do file operations like copy, move, and delete. These can be super helpful if there's some reason you don't have permissions. I find it way more convenient to do sudo rm the file than to open Dolphin, switch to administrator mode, then delete the file. Basically, all of them follow the format where you type what you want to do, then the file folder you want to do that to, then its destination with the new name at the end. So if I want to copy this text file named test.txt to my downloads folder, but also rename it to 1.txt, then I can do this command. Since 1.txt is the name of the destination file, it changes the file name to that while copying. That's also why there's no rename command, since moving a file to the same spot with a different name basically does the same thing as renaming it. Okay, but what if you don't want to type dolphin dot every time you want to open dolphin where you are? That's where aliases come in. You can basically take any single command and assign it a new name. So if I did alias open here dolphin dot, then when I type open here, it opens dolphin where I'm at. This is a lifesaver feature because it makes it so you don't actually have to remember most commands outside of the basic ones like cd and ls. If you figure out a really complicated command that you want to use regularly, then making an alias for it saves a ton of time. What if you want to chain commands together? That's where the double ampersand comes in. If you do double ampersand after a command, then that means to execute the next command after the first one. Let's see a practical example of that. We'll do exactly what I showed off in the first video of the series. A simple command named update that updates all my packages and flatpaks in one go. Here's the single command that I run to update everything. As you can see, it's really just two commands with the double ampersand to combine them, so they're just one alias. Speaking of aliases, if you want an alias to be permanent, navigate to your home directory, .config, fish, and edit config.fish and add this line. You can repeat this for any aliases you want, just put the command between the quotation marks. On bash and zish, directly in your home directory, there should be a .bashrc and a .zshrc file. It has the same syntax for aliases, so no worries there. If you thought aliases were cool, next we have scripts. These are files that execute a more complex series of commands. Remember the .sh file from a couple videos ago? That was a script file that executed a few lines to launch the game. Those are bash scripts, but they can run via fish as long as the person who wrote the script properly formatted it. Fish-specific scripts have a .fish file extension afterwards, while bash has a .sh file extension afterwards. Scripts are also very useful if you need user input. For example, I have this function here which adjusts the brightness of my triple monitor setup. If I put -L at the end, it will lower the brightness, and anything else will reset the brightness to normal. This was necessary because typically PC monitors don't have an easy way to adjust brightness settings. I could have split this into two different aliases, but this way is way more efficient and easy to remember. Anyway, that's just one example. They're fun to experiment with and automate tasks with. If you don't want to learn how to make scripts like this, try asking AI to generate an appropriate script for your shell and trying it out. Do not try doing that on sensitive data. Either test it thoroughly before using it regularly, or only generate scripts that wouldn't be irreversible. Before we move on, let's take a look at how to install and update packages from the terminal. There was a sneak peek just a bit ago where I showed how to update packages. The first thing you'll want to learn is Pacman. This is how you install packages from the official Arch repository, basically the default mode of Octopi. You just type sudo pacman-s and then all the packages you want to install. You can even still use tab to autocomplete. So if I wanted to install both VLC and MPV at the same time in one command, I just do sudo pacman-s VLC MPV, and that'll install both packages at once. For the AUR, there's two main ones, Yay and Paru. It doesn't really matter which you use, but Paru seems to be more standard these days. If any instructions tell you to use one, the other will work as well. It will sometimes prompt you to look at the package build differences. In Yay, you should probably just type N, while in Paru, you press Q to exit the differences. In fact, you can actually just completely replace Pacman with Paru or Yay if you want. For both of them, the flag -syu will update the packages on your system. So looking at the alias I showed before, the part here basically updates all your native packages because it updates Pacman packages as well. The flags make it so you don't need to do anything other than type your password, so it skips all the other prompts. You can type the flags out when installing as well, but it's annoying. For Flatpaks, honestly I just go to FlatHub, and if you click on the drop down under install, it just gives you the command to punch in to install a specific Flatpak. Hopefully all of that made sense, but I have to say it's much faster to set the alias for updating rather than opening both Octopi and Discover then updating from there. Also, installing multiple packages that you know the name of is way faster than doing either of those options. Something that you might notice is that because apps run from the terminal are, well, attached to the terminal, you can't close that terminal because it'll close the application as well, which is obviously not great. The way to fix this is to do this. This will detach the application from the terminal, but leave the terminal open. You can just tack on exit afterwards to automatically close the terminal. If you really want to, you can make a function for this where it'll automatically write out the rest of it for you like so. So if I type BG, then the application I want to launch, it'll basically launch like normal. Honestly, there's not really much reason to do this unless you prefer using the terminal over your app launcher or start menu, but it does come in handy if you have a very particular function you want to write. Next, some packages that make using the terminal more fun. Let's start with direct upgrades, EZA, Z-Oxide, and Micro. EZA replaces LS and makes it look a million times nicer and offers way nicer options as well. Add this alias. What this does is replace LS completely. I also really like having colors and icons, but you can take a look at EZA's GitHub page for more information. Alright, next, we have a replacement for CD. What on earth could possibly be improved from changing directory? The answer is unironically mind reading, kinda. What Z-Oxide does is locally track what directories you use as you navigate it, and then it can start to predict where you want to go if you enter something invalid. It's probably easier if I just show you. For reference, the command for Z-Oxide is just Z in the terminal, but I like to change the alias to CD just because it's a habit now. Let's say we constantly edit our fish config. It's in our home folder, .config, fish. If we kept using Z-Oxide to navigate there, it would learn that if we type fish, we probably mean that folder. Meaning no matter where you are, if you use zfish, it will take you to home.config fish. Once it learns it, then it is blazingly faster than navigating using a regular file manager. Like I said, mind reading. The last upgrade I have is arguably a different thing altogether, but it's Micro. There are many ways to edit text in a terminal, and it's also much more convenient in my opinion than calling a regular text editor, which opens a whole other window to edit a file. If you're used to Notepad, the closest thing I've found to a terminal is Micro. To use it, just type Micro in the file that you want to edit, and then just make edits like normal. You can click around, keybinds are pretty familiar, and when you're ready to leave, just press Ctrl plus Q to quit. The standard text editors in Linux are Vim and Nano, and you'll find them in pretty much every distro out there. Vim is a more advanced and has a harsh learning curve, while Nano is like Micro but worse. You can't click around and have to navigate completely with the keyboard, it has strange keybinds, and overall looks way more bland. Don't think too hard about it, Micro is intuitive and powerful, so just use it. If you ever have to use the original command for CD or LS, just type command before typing the command. It basically tells the shell to ignore aliases and use the true name for what you're running. So those were the direct upgrades that I recommended, but there's one more terminal tool I love using, and that's FZF. It stands for Fuzzy Find, and it's insanely useful. On its own, it seems kinda meh. It's not particularly interesting, but once you get really deep into understanding its complexities, it becomes insane. Here's my setup. I set it up so if I press Ctrl F anywhere in the terminal, it pops up FZF to search for a file. If I find a file I want to look at and press enter, it automatically jumps into the folder that the file is in, or the folder itself. It is so unbelievably helpful and seemingly way faster than searching for any file in Windows, and honestly somehow faster than Dolphin. My configuration for fish will be in the description. And that's about it. There's obviously so much more to talk about with the terminal, but this is all the stuff I find extremely useful as well as stuff I use daily for efficiency. If you're watching this in real time, then I'm going to take a break from making Linux videos. I feel like I've given out most of the information that I know about Linux, other than maybe how to use Hyperland, which maybe one day I'll make a video about. Thank you to anyone who stuck around throughout the whole thing. My next video will go back to what I kind of wanted my main channel content to be, me talking about games. I'm going to have to play through some games, and I'll be streaming my gameplay on YouTube and Twitch as I take notes about it for the video. I'd appreciate it if you stopped by and hung out, maybe you'll even get into the video as a clip, who knows. The first stream is probably happening the day after this video goes live, so I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.